It's time for Recipe of the Day. I've been talking a lot about brining turkey pieces because I find it a pain to brine a whole turkey. I'm talking about wet brining. You need all that liquid. It needs to be cold. The turkey needs to be cold. It needs to be cold for a long time. But if you do the turkey pieces, like I was telling you about last week, then it takes less time and they take up less space. However, I know that a lot of people want to do the whole turkey and you want to have that whole turkey to take to the table to carve, in which case you're not going to do the turkey pieces and you might not want to mess with that big quantity of cold water on the turkey and keeping it all cold for a long time. And so today I'm telling you about dry brining, which really does bring so much flavor right into the turkey meat. It also does make it more juicy and it gives you the crispiest of turkey skin. Really wonderful technique. I'm going to tell you how to do it now. So dry brining is basically just combining salt with some herbs and spices, although really the only required thing is the salt. And then you rub it onto a meat or poultry. And then over time, the salt penetrates into the turkey. It brings out some of the moisture. The moisture and salt mix together and they reabsorb into the turkey, leading to moister, more tender, well-seasoned meat right inside. To do this, you're going to make sure that you have not purchased a turkey that has been pre-seasoned or previously brined. So try not to purchase anything that says kosher or enhanced or self-basting, because that's going to already have some stuff going on. If it's a frozen turkey, you do need to thaw it completely, consult the instructions on the packaging. Then you're going to get your turkey and you're going to put it in a large roasting pan sitting on top of a rack. Okay, so you have a rack and a roasting pan, turkey goes on there. Then you're mixing together for a 10 to 12 pound turkey, a quarter cup of kosher salt, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of dried sage, 1 tablespoon of dried thyme, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and a tablespoon of rosemary, dried rosemary. And really it is dried herbs and spices that are working best here. You don't want the fresh ones. It's just not going to spread out in the same way. It's not going to stick to the turkey as well. So all dried things for this mixture. Okay, so you mix those things together, and then I like to divide it into thirds, or really divide it into half and then take a little bit from each half. And that's just going to help you make sure that you're getting even seasoning all over the bird. We have that bowl of seasoning and you're going to try and put it in all different places on the turkey. It's not going to be as even, but if you divide it up, I'm going to tell you what to do. It's going to make it much easier. Oh, I should have mentioned that if you don't want to use all those individual seasonings, you can do 4 ounces of an unsalted seasoning blend, like a homemade poultry seasoning or a store-bought poultry seasoning or a homemade turkey seasoning. I will give you links to those. 4 ounces of that mixed with the 1/4 cup of kosher salt that you're using for this recipe. So if you don't want to have all those individual seasonings, you can do that instead. Okay, so I've told you, mix that all up and then you're dividing it in half and then taking a little bit from each half. That little bit that you took from each half, you're going to use that to go under the skin of the breast and inside the cavity of the turkey. Rub that all around in those places. Then you're going to take one of your halves that remains and use it to season half of the turkey, and then use the other half to season the other half. Get all into the nooks and crannies, get it everywhere, underneath, over top, on the sides. But doing that half and half, just make sure that you're not over seasoning some part and under seasoning the other part. See what I mean? Now, once it's all covered, you are going to transfer that whole thing, the rack in the roasting pan, turkey, into the fridge, and you're leaving it in there uncovered for 24 to 48 hours. In that time, the turkey skin is going to dry out from the salt and from the cold exposure in the fridge, and that's going to help with that crispiness later. And the salt is penetrating into the turkey muscle to bring that seasoning in there and do all that juiciness we were talking about. After your 24 to 48 hours, you're going to take it out of the fridge. Now, I get asked this all the time. Do you rinse off the turkey? You should actually never rinse off a turkey or really any kind of meat or poultry. Don't rinse things in your sink like that. What happens is the water bounces off of the raw meat in kind of a fine mist that you can't even see, and that potentially contaminates other surfaces in your kitchen. So don't do that. No matter how you've prepped your turkey, no matter what you've done to it, don't do that. If you really want to, if you haven't done this dry brine situation, but you were at another stage with your turkey, nothing on it yet, you can pat it dry with some paper towel. That's totally fine, but don't rinse it. Okay, so you're taking this turkey out of the fridge. You are not rinsing it. You're also not wiping it off at all. Now, if you're looking at the picture that I have in the recipe and the blog post and on the podcast episode for this, it looks like there's like a big coating of seasoning on the turkey. That picture was taken midway through the process. Once you've rubbed it all in and it sat there in the fridge for all that time, it's going to be the finest of layers and you're not going to want to wipe it off. You want all that seasoning on there, and the salt is not sitting on the surface. It is all penetrated. So just leave that alone. And then you're going to cook the turkey. You can cook it any way you like to. I will put a link to how to roast turkey in the show notes. But basically you're looking at about 13 minutes per pound at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, breast side up. For a 12-pound bird, that's a little over 2.5 hours. You want to use an instant read thermometer to get a reading right in the middle of the breast and in the middle of the thigh, not touching the bone. That's 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You could do 155 degrees Fahrenheit if you know that you're going to rest it well and test that temperature after resting to make sure that it has risen up to the 165 degrees Fahrenheit that is safe. The only other thing that I'm going to tell you about is that the drippings from this turkey can be quite salty because of all that salt that we added. And so you don't want to count on being able to use them for the gravy. Instead, I'm going to link to how to make gravy without drippings. And what you're going to do is you're going to use unsalted chicken stock to make that gravy in place of where you would normally use drippings. But then you can use some of your salty drippings to season that gravy, okay? Just be a little bit careful because as gravy simmers on the stove, water evaporates out of it and that can concentrate the salt. So anytime you're adding anything salty to a gravy, you risk it becoming over salty. If that happens, you might want to add some more of that unsalted chicken stock or just some water to get it back to where it was, okay? So that is how you dry brine and then cook a turkey that was dry brined, and I guess how you make gravy from it. I will put the link to this recipe and to all the other recipes that I've talked about in the show notes for this podcast episode. You can also find this recipe if you go to cookthestory.com/ROTD. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is November 22nd of 2024. And if you make this recipe and you love it, or if you have made any of the recipes from either of my websites, cookthestory.com or thecookful.com, and you enjoyed them, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a comment and a rating. The comments really help all of us become better cooks and learn from each other. And I know you want your food to taste delicious. I want your food to taste delicious. So we can all help each other out, let each other know what we've done differently, what we've changed, what we've kept the same, what we've liked. And if you could do the 5-star rating, that really helps me build my business. It brings more people here when they see those 5 stars on Google. So that's just an extra little favor that you can do for me. Thank you very much. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.